up, but Mary, let me tell you.
And as long as certain segments of the public believe O.J. is innocent, and they do, especially as against the background of the revelations about police crookedness in L.A.
The fallout from the LAPD corruption scandal is growing, larger than anyone had expected. The number of cases now under review are in the thousands, according to Dennis Plourde, who's handling the investigation for the Public Defender's Office.
My guess is somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000.
And anything like this ever been done before?
Not to my knowledge, not in my career at least.
The reviews were prompted by the revelations of former officer Rafael Perez. He's told about planted evidence and bad police shootings in return for a reduced sentence on cocaine charges. 511 cases Officer Perez testified in are now under review by the Public Defender's Office. The other 2,500 will come from a list of 11 officers under investigation from the Rampart Station.
You would think the Browns would want to release as often as is necessary these phone records in order to establish that O.J.'s defense is not true and lay to rest any doubts about O.J.'s guilt. But they're not doing that. And as long as they seem to the public to be playing it close to the vest and being secretive, segments of the public will believe that maybe O.J. is innocent. Let's get these phone records out there as often as is possible.
But the idea that the police might very well be planting evidence, people like OJ Simpson are taking to a far extreme.
I'm talking about obstruction of justice. I just wish that someone would come forward with the phone records, be it the Browns, GTE, Dan Petrocelli, Marsha Clark, someone. We have constitutional violations here, and I am here to stand up for the rights of all Americans to hear and know the truth.
Who's got the phone records? Oh, GTE has the certified copy.
GTE has no place in this.
The best evidence in this case was kept out of this case. It's very simple. If Marsha Clark said that she had the telephone records, then all she had to do was to introduce them. Why were they kept out? Why was there a lie about the exhibits? So all they have to do is show the telephone records.
All they had to do was ask Judge Ito for an order directing GTE to supply these records. It's very difficult to believe now, 3 years after the verdict, that these records existed, that they knew about them at the time and couldn't get them.
And we also know now that Juditha Brown, or Nicole Brown Simpson's mother, may not testify, and there will be a stipulation as to what she would have said in front of this jury, that the defense and the prosecution will agree that they will say to the jury that Juditha Brown will testify that she had a conversation with her daughter at about 9:40, 9:45.
And Ms. Clark, have you consulted with Mr. Cochran regarding these matters?
Yes, Your Honor, we have.
And have we reached an agreement?
Yes, we have.
All right, and what are the nature of the, you don't have to read me the stipulations, but what are the topics of the stipulations?
Yes, the first stipulation is concerning the testimony of Juditha Brown, concerning, the court's, I think, familiar with the subject matter.
Yes.
The second would be stipulation concerning the admissibility of telephone records. These concern the phone bills for the home telephone of the defendant and for Juditha Brown.
All right, this will be subject to our agreement that if at a subsequent time there are phone numbers that are not relevant to the case, those will be redacted.
Right.
My understanding that both sides reserve that right to object on relevancy, and the fact that we want to maintain the privacy of these numbers if at all possible, and further, there are other people who may have made these phone calls other than the parties involved.
All right. And the third stipulation?
And the third stipulation concerns the photographs contained in People's 354, 358B, and 359, which I propose to, when we read them to the jury, I want to be able to show the exhibits to the jury so they know what we're talking about.
Yes, and I'd like to be heard with regard to a 352 objection, a further 352 objection as to exhibits 354 and 358B for the record, and then we can proceed with the stipulation.
All right, then I think we should, then I should hear the objections, 352 objections as to 354 and 358B. Let's start with 358B. I do have that in front of me.
That the prejudicial effect of that photograph of Mr. Goldman and his injuries far outweighs any probative value. We felt that particular photograph was just beyond and above and unnecessary.
Well, the photograph, particularly the one in issue now with counsel, is very relevant to depict and to illustrate the testimony of Dr. Lakshmanan and the appearance of those injuries as the victims were found at the scene is critical to the foundation for his testimony and the formulation of his opinions. And
So these are very intelligent people, Your Honor. They have the numbers. They've seen Exhibit 354. It's a photograph of, as we indicated, of Ms. Nicole Brown Simpson, and 358B is a photograph of Mr. Goldman. With regard to, and 359, and what that is, it seems to me it's pretty clear of what these areas portray. These photographs have been up so many times in this jury, and the court will recall that on a couple occasions the jurors had to take time out because of the nature, not necessarily these photographs, but some of these photographs of the decedents. And so I just don't think we need that at this point.
with respect to showing the jury the photographs we stipulate to, how are they going to understand what the stipulations mean or refer to if we don't?
This photograph doesn't add anything, and it tends to be extremely gruesome and disturbing. You use those words yourself. So,
And if we can't show them to the jury and we're entering a dry stipulation when it comes time for them to look at the exhibits, they're not going to have any recollection at all.
I also would object further. I don't think the jury needs to see these again. They've seen these photographs before. I see no reason for that at this point. We're not going to show them any of the other exhibits at this point. And we didn't show them we're not going to show them anything with regard to the telephone bills or whatever. We're not going to show them anything with regard to the telephone bills or whatever. We're not going to show them anything with regard to the telephone bills or whatever.
I want to bring one more. I understood. I want to bring one more thing into this mix. It's Dan Petrocelli, who entered these phone records into the record in the civil trial as exhibit number 26. Listen to what he said to us yesterday about those particular phone records and our access to them. Listen.
We do have the phone records. We have them.
So why not?
I'd be happy to show them to you. They were shown to the jury in the civil trial. They're there. Anybody can see them. You can be displaying them right now on a screen next to me had you asked me to bring them.
If you don't mind, when we're through here, I'm going to have a producer get on the phone with you. We'll get that stuff. We'll post it on our website.
Okay.
He said in the end there before they clipped it, okay. And as it turns out, he told our producers afterwards that it might take a couple of days to produce those. Today, in a phone call with our producers, he said that, in fact, those records are the property, quote unquote, of Lou Brown, and that we couldn't have access to them without Lou Brown's permission. Now,
they're never in a million years going to show that Juditha Brown spoke to Nicole at 11 o'clock.
Now, is there something in the report that indicates that one of your investigators had information from the mother of the decedent that she was alive at 11 p.m.?
Yes.
What information did you have?
Am I allowed to testify on it? Am I allowed to testify on it?
And, Your Honor, now I will check on the grounds that counsel is attempting to elicit hearsay. And hearsay of a potentially unreliable nature.
Okay.
Did you see any information about a telephone conversation when you came to your conclusions?
I want to show you. But those phone records show that the Browns were able to travel 75 miles in 45 minutes.
I heard about a telephone conversation and did see it in the report.
Who'd you hear about it from?
It's so ridiculous.
The initial report of the telephone conversation?
Yes.
I believe I heard it on the news or in the paper.
Is that before you saw it in your report?
Yes.
You mean the news had it on before it was in your investigator's report on the 13th?
I believe the news used the investigator's report. Preliminary investigator's report.
Are you saying the news read the report before you did?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
And you would rather rely upon that than upon a mother's testimony that she talked, or a mother's comment that she had a telephone conversation with her daughter?
Who's got the phone records?
Bill Hodgman, the DA, got the unprecedented order to remove all the evidence used in the prosecution of OJ Simpson.
Johnny Cochran, now a successful Los Angeles defense attorney, and a close